Okie dokie, Mr. Skiddard. Oh no, they threw Spink Big in the jail cell.
Okay, now let's try putting this together with an exercise that uses both hands together. But they're not playing the same thing. It's not like the exercise we just did, but they're both doing something individual. And of course, this exercise is going to be the grid. What's nice about the grid is that it takes one hand and applies only a single measure at a time. So at the very end of the measure, we're gonna start thinking of what the next hand is going to do. But throughout the majority of whatever measure we're on, it will focus on only the right or the left hand until the very end when we start to pass it off to the next hand. So I'm gonna kind of do a hybrid of taking you through this one measure at a time and then taking larger chunks. Of course, you should practice each of these patterns for long periods of time, right? So just take the first measure and just loop it, loop it, loop it, loop it, loop it, loop it, repeat it over and over again, just the first measure, and then take just the second measure and then loop it, loop it, loop it, loop it, repeat it, until you feel comfortable with that measure, so on and so forth, until you get all four measures of the 4 beats in a row patterns. And of course, later on, the grid will compress and get smaller patterns, but we're not focusing on that for today. We just want to get the first part through of the grid, and all of this will actually carry on into the rest of the grid as well. So first, I'm just going to play the first measure of the grid by itself without looping, without repeating anything like that. This will just be the first measure. 1E and 2E and 3E and grid, here I go. Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. First, let's talk about the easier part of this, which is going to be the left hand. The left hand is just playing taps on the E's and the U's until its very last note, which of course will be an upstroke to set up for the next tap that it's got in the measure 2. So what the right hand is playing is a combination of downstroke, upstroke, down, up, down, up, down, up. So what you can do is take that, practice it by itself, and then once you feel comfortable doing that, throw in just a whole bunch of left hand taps on the E's and the U's, nice and slowly, so something like this. Just to the point where you feel comfortable playing with both hands doing something individual, right? They're not doing the same thing anymore, and we're not just working on a single hand exercise. Both hands have a job to do. And again, just take that first measure and just loop it over and over and over again. And notice how quick I'm being in my motions. I'm not waiting to set up the accent stroke height at the very last second like this. And I'm also not playing everything from the same stick height and just forcing out the accent notes like this. Right? You can already hear how much worse that sounds and how much more awkward it looks to play. And then finally, what you'll definitely want to practice is the transition in between these two measures. So just take this beat by itself. Just take beat 4. We have down, tap, tap, up. Again, down, tap, tap, up. And one last time, down, tap, tap, up. So what you've done here is set up a situation where the next note that the right hand is going to play will be the following tap for the next measure, because again, they're switching duties. Now the right hand is on tap duty, and the left hand is set up for its next note, which is going to be an accent. And with that in mind, let's play measure 2 now. 1E and 2E and 3E and measure 2. Okay, so we've got pretty much the same thing going on in that measure as we did measure 1, but everything's just mirrored. We've got the left hand now on downstroke, upstroke, down, up, down, up, down, up. We've just displaced where it's happening in the measure, And again, that right hand is now on tap duty. So we can take those together, the right hand on tap duty, 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so forth, and the left hand playing E, 2, E, 3, E, and E, and and we can combine them to play the accent pattern that's written out for us. Right, so we have tap down, tap up, 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 tap down, tap up. And then taking a look at the beat 4 transition, because it's going to be a little bit different every single time. Again, this time we are playing tap, down, tap, tap. So what this does is puts all of the hands at the correct stick height, just this 6-inch mezzo forte tap stick height, so that we can play measure 3. Now we're back to sort of a mirrored version of what the right hand was doing in measure 1. So now the right hand is playing up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And let's take measure 3 on its own here. 1 E and 2 E measure 3, have fun, and 4, here we go. Okay, so I'm hoping that at this point you can kind of see what exactly is going on here. Again, we've got the right hand playing tap, accent, tap, accent, tap, accent, tap, accent. Or a more efficient way of thinking, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And the left hand again has just been demoted to tap duty. Yeehaw. For the beat 4 turnaround, what we've got this time is up, tap, down, tap. And that sets us up in proper position, just 6-inch strokes for the next 2 notes. The right hand will play a tap volume note, and the left hand will also play a tap volume note, or just those 6-inch mezzo forte notes. And let's take a look at the final measure now. The left hand is now fulfilling the role that the right hand did, where instead of playing down, up, it's playing up, down. And the final measure will sound like this. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and last measure go. So again, another way that we can think about this, instead of tap, 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 accent, tap, 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 accent, tap, 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 is with which type of strokes that they're playing. So we have tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap, down. And then in beat 4, of course, in the music, I've notated this with an asterisk, because depending on what you're playing next, you may have a different stroke type here. So if you're going on in the music, the and of 4 will actually be an upstroke. This is true also if you are repeating it. But for now, we're just gonna kind of leave it as is, as its own standalone exercise. You'll just play these 4 bars and then stop. Eventually, as you feel more comfortable, feel free to keep going on this, repeat it, go further on in the exercise to the 2 pattern rather than the 4 pattern that we're playing now. Cool, now let's play the full grid together, first at a slow tempo, then at a faster tempo. Okay, now let's go to apply this to a different real world scenario, which is going to be rudiments, and more specifically, our diddle rudiments. We're gonna go ahead and start with paradiddles here, because they illustrate this point quite nicely. And then we'll get into some double paradiddle action in a little bit. So again, as we play these paradiddles, we've got accents on each big beat. Every time we say 1 E and 2 E and paradiddle, paradiddle. And I'm operating under the assumption that you already know the sticking for paradiddle, right? That should be in the back of your mind at this point, but if it's not, we have right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. But what I just played right there without accents is not the paradiddle that you most commonly see and is not the paradiddle that we're working on today. The paradiddle that we most often see is this. Down, up, tap, tap. Down, up, tap, tap. Down, up, tap, tap. Down, up, tap, tap. So while you're working on these paradiddles, take it slowly. We're mixing in these double strokes, right? The diddles. And we are also mixing in this brand new concept of stroke preps, of these upstrokes and downstrokes. So truly take this one note at a time in a mirror before you even think about adding a beat to it. Okay, so truly look under the darn paradiddle and play what you see. You should see downstroke. Okay, so we're starting from an upstroke with the other hand prepped to play just a mezzo forte tap. We are playing down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap. If it helps while you're working on these, the paradiddle rudiments, paradiddle, double paradiddle, and triple paradiddle all have a really neat trick where instead of saying paradiddle, you can say pair up diddle. So pair upstroke diddle, right? Pair upstroke diddle, pair up diddle, pair up diddle, pair up diddle. So you can try that while you're playing as well. So again, we're starting from an accent stroke height in the right hand, and we can say pair up diddle, pair up diddle, pair up diddle, pair up diddle. And everything that we talked about before, right? With our hands moving quickly to the positions that they're supposed to be, whether you're thinking of that in terms of stick heights, dynamic, elevator floors, whatever it happens to be, my hands are moving quickly to the spots I want them to be in. And I'm using the motion of the rebound to get me there. I'm not last second changing my hand heights like this. And I'm also not keeping them at a flat stick height and just adjusting my speed and the force at which I'm playing, right? It doesn't look like this. I'm achieving the difference in volume from note to note through my stroke preps and getting to the stick height that I want, utilizing that rebound to get me there. So again, feel free to practice these paradiddles, practice them note by note in a mirror, and then start adding a beat to what you're doing and then record yourself playing these. Make sure this is happening. It's so easy to get into those little problems like prepping the prep and by acting last second and not even realizing it until you actually go to record yourself playing. And I know this can be daunting now, like once you start digging into this and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to relearn all the rudiments and learn them this way, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, of course it's gonna seem daunting at first, but I can assure you, after you start working on this, it will start happening subconsciously. Everything you go to play will follow this sort of structure and this philosophy, technique, whatever you want to call it, of playing and playing accent passages and whatever else you play, everything you touch will follow this play style. Okay, good? Are we good? Good. Here's paradiddles a little faster. Pair up, diddle, ready, go. Pair up, diddle, 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 pair up, diddle. Up diddle, pair up diddle. And don't worry, we're gonna dig in more to rudiments in the rudiments video. I just wanna kind of use these to illustrate the point and demonstrate what stroke preps look like in a real world scenario. Already go to the next one. All right, and our last diddle rudiment here will be the double paradiddle, which again, if you don't know the sticking, is right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, left. Or double paradiddle, double, paradiddle. Or double, pair, up, diddle. Double, pair, up, diddle. Double, pair, up, diddle. Double, pair, up, diddle. And so you can see this is just a more complicated pattern using the exact same philosophy, the exact same idea from before. We've just got a few more tap notes thrown in there. So as you go through this, again, go very, 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 very nice and slowly. Take it one note at a time until you can do it comfortably and with a flow that makes you happy. And I know it's a lot to keep track of. You're keeping track of your sticking, whether it's left or right, keeping track of your accent heights. You're trying to make sure that you're playing everything in a mezzo forte volume or forte, fortissimo, whatever you want to be playing. And on top of all of that, you are trying to make sure that you're playing the right downstrokes, upstrokes, and tap to tap, accent to accent, whatever you have in all of these rudiments. But just take it slowly, and I promise it will come to you. So here it is again, this time going note by note at a nice slow speed, and I'm just going to say the downs, the taps, and the ups. Down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. 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 So while you're practicing this, it does look a little bit silly to have your one hand just waiting up in the air for that accent, but this will sort of change while we speed up, right? You don't typically see paradiddles or double paradiddles for that matter, written at 20 BPM in marching band music very often. This is just for us to practice and to get used to that motion. I promise that as you go along, you'll speed these up and you'll be glad that you learned them this way, because then you're just reducing these rudiments and these sticking combinations and the accents and the taps and the blah, 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 blah into stickings and stroke preps. So here's going to be a mountain example of playing paradiddles just at some comfortable speeds here. Pair, up, did, do. 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 Pair, up, diddle, pair, up, diddle, pair, up, diddle, pair, up, diddle, pair. Okay, and the last topic that we're going to cover today is going to be flam rudiments. Now, flam rudiments add one extra little piece of the puzzle into the mix here, and it doesn't sound like a big change, but it's horrible. It's going to mess the whole thing up. You're going to feel like you don't know what to do with your body when you first start trying to apply flam rudiments. Now, for the outro of this video, I'm going to go a little bit further in detail about sort of the philosophy of playing flam rudiments. But for right now, I'm going to show you the strictest interpretation of playing flam rudiments, just so that you can get a taste of how precise you can and probably should be playing while you're participating in any sort of rudimental drumming. Okay, so that last little piece of the puzzle that it adds in is a grace note to play the flam, or the 1-inch stick height, right? So we want our grace note to just fall like 1 inch off the head, right? So every time we have a grace note, we're starting from about here. Okay, nice low stick height. And for our accent, since we're having accented mezzo forte notes, or at a fortissimo volume, we will have a combination of the grace note being at 1 inch and the accented note being at about 9 inches. And then when we go to play our flam, we should just let both sticks drop and we get a flam sound. So if we take a look at the Flam Accent, what's happening is we're having an upstroke in the left hand, but only rising up to the mezzo forte tap volume, and then we're having a downstroke in the right hand, but only downstroking to a mezzo forte tap height again. So what happens is we're going from our max height and our bottom height, and they're both meeting in the middle so that they can both set up for tap height strokes. So we're gonna start like this, play our flam, and then both should come back to a 6-inch stroke prep. So again, the right hand will be playing a downstroke, returning to this position, and the left hand will be playing an upstroke, returning to this position. So it should look like that. Okay, so do that a few times and make sure you feel comfortable doing that. And then we're just gonna add in the next building blocks of the Flam Accent as we go along here. So again, after we play our first flam, then the next note that we have will be on the left hand, and it's going to be an upstroke. So we have the flam returning to 6-inch stroke, and then we play our 6-inch stroke as an upstroke, so that the left hand is now set up to play its next accent. The next thing that happens is the right hand plays a downstroke from a 6-inch stroke, landing prepped for a 1-inch stroke, like this. So notice that right hand is starting at 6 inches, only rebounding to 1 inch, because the next note that the right hand plays is a flam, and now we're having the opposite thing happen, where now the right hand is upstroking, only to a 6-inch stroke, and the left hand is downstroking to a 6-inch stroke as well. So again, here's the first part of a flam accent. I'll play flam, accent, flam. Flam, accent, flam. See how that looks? It looks a little awkward and slow, at a slow speed. Flam, accent, flam. So notice that combination. Now we have sort of 2 levels of upstrokes and downstrokes. So we have like the super upstroke, which would be going from like a flam all the way up to an accent, which we don't actually see here. We've got flam coming up to a tap, which we do see. And then we've got also the opposite. So like the super downstroke, which would be a downstroke from an accented position set up for a flam position. We also have the downstroke where we're coming from an accent ending in a tap position. And then we have downstroke from a tap into a flam position. So you can see this just adds another layer of complexity to everything that we're doing here. It's very important that you practice these in super slow motion. Now again, I do have a disclaimer about this at the end that we'll talk about with regards to the speed at which you're playing and how that will sort of affect the ability to do this motion. But again, speaking as strictly as possible, this is technically the most correct and most proper way of playing a flam accent as far as I'm aware. So you can see I've included another example of a different way that you can interpret this. And what I've got here is underneath every note, I'm showing you the volume that the stick will be going to. So from the sheet music itself, from the grace note, the accent notes, and the taps, you are getting what volume the stick is playing at that moment. Meaning, if you have a grace note written, you're playing a 1-inch stroke. Underneath the music, where it says mezzo forte, fortissimo, pianissimo, mezzo forte, fortissimo, pianissimo, you are getting the height that the stick is rising to or falling to, whether it's an upstroke or a downstroke. So let's take a look at just the right hand here. So we're gonna ignore the left hand, and you can see that the right hand is playing an accented stroke. So we're starting from a 9-inch stroke height. And underneath the note, we have mezzo forte. And from this, we can gather that it is going to play an accented mezzo forte and is going to stop at a mezzo forte height, like this. The next note that the right hand plays is the tap at the end of the flam accent, okay? And so that means it is playing a 6-inch stroke, and underneath we can see the pianissimo, meaning that the next stroke that is being set up is a grace note. So it'll look like a downstroke. Of course, the next thing, the right hand is not labeled because we don't label grace notes in rudimental drumming, but we have a grace note, so a 1-inch stroke coming up to a mezzo forte stroke, like so. And then the last thing that we've got is a tap or a mezzo forte stroke setting up for an accented mezzo forte or a fortissimo 9-inch stroke, like that. And you can do the same thing with the left hand so that you can really see what's happening. But what's most important is that you can sort of get this choreography figured out. And what I would suggest to do is go one note at a time. Get one motion. Of course, the flams kind of count as one motion, so it kind of makes it 2 motions at once. But just do this for a little while. Just get used to playing flam and then have them both come to a tap height. Okay, and that's the very beginning of the flam accent. And honestly, this is like the hardest part of playing the flam accent. Getting that. And then just add one note at a time. The next thing to happen is a left, which is an upstroke, like this. Okay, so just do that much. Then you can hear we have flam, ack, flam, ack, flam, ack. And then add the cent, which is going to be a right hand tap that is playing a downstroke, setting up for a grace note. So then we have our flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. And then add flam, ack, cent, flam. And then we're doing the opposite that we were before, or the mirror, or the symmetry of what we were doing before, where now we have a left flam and they're both returning to a 6-inch stroke. So from the beginning, we'll have flam, ack, cent, flam. Flam, ack, cent, flam. Again, flam, ack, cent, flam. And one last time, flam, ack, cent, flam. Next, add the ack, flam, ack, cent, flam, ack. 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 And then add your next flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. But don't loop it yet, just do that much, just those 6 motions. Flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. Okay, so now we're set up for the next note, which is going to be the loop of what we've just played. But take a break, give your brain a break. Flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. Okay, flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. Flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent. Okay, and then what you can do is add flam, ack, cent, flam, ack, cent, flam. Just because you can play it one time through does not mean you're ready to loop it. You'll notice if you go to play 2 in a row, 2 sets, flam accent, flam accent, flam accent, flam accent, of course with no break in between, you're probably not ready to do that. You haven't had this motion enough time. Add in just the next flam. Flam, accent, flam, accent, flam. Okay, and then once you feel comfortable doing that, the motion should kind of start to come to you a little bit, but just continue adding one puzzle piece at a time, and that is probably the best way for most people to do this. And that's basically as far as we're going to take the flam accent today. I'm going to have another part of this series be dedicated specifically to rudiments, and we're just going to run through a few more of those. But this is definitely enough for pretty much anybody to chew on. Just between the accent and tap concept of this play style, there's still quite a bit for anybody who's not familiar with it to work on. I just wanted to add in this flam rudiment here to kind of preview what's coming next and sort of give you that perspective for anybody who's getting this quickly to kind of see where this is going to go in the future and kind of where to direct your attention next. So I hope this helps, and now we will kind of regroup here for the outro because I have said a lot today. Okay, I'm literally so burnt out on this. Anyway, so I hope all of that gives you a better understanding on how we are approaching stroke preps and how those relate to rudiments, as well as the real world example that we did when we went through the grid. Again, I know this is literally so much that you want, and it's the hardest thing you've ever done. But really, once you do start to get it, it starts to make more and more sense, and as you go along, and blah, 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 blah. And what I wanted to say regarding the Flam Rudiments and all of that stuff, the thing is as you go faster, these motions, like you want your accents to be up here, and you want your flams to be all the way down here. But the thing is, with the speed, as the speed increases, you're literally not able to play that high, and that nobody can, only if a robot can. So these things are going to get closer and closer, so maybe your accent won't be this tall, maybe it's only going to be this tall, and your flams won't be this low, maybe they'll only be this low. So the couple philosophies to that are either maybe your flam heights start to get a little bit taller and end up being about the same height as your tap heights, so your regular unaccented notes, those two start to get a little bit closer by way of raising the grace note volume. Or the other thing that kind of happens is that your tap volume starts to come down and you're using more dramatic downstrokes and things like that, and that your taps sort of become the same volume as your grace notes by way of lowering your tap volume to meet the grace notes. And all of that you'll kind of just have to figure out on your own in your specific drum line or whoever you're playing with. These aren't necessarily hard and fast rules. Just kind of do whatever your school, your group, whoever is capable of doing. But the more you think about and focus on having a differentiation in between your grace note, tap, and accent height, the more you'll kind of have a deeper understanding and a cleaner execution of these ideas, especially as they relate to stroke preps. Okay, I'm done now. Bye.